What is good? Welcome to another episode of Rockets Talk, and we are back. Summer mode right now. A lot has happened over the past 2 weeks or so since we last talked to you guys. One of the major things was the Drake and Kendrick. No, I'm playing. I know the Rockets just got the number 3 pick in the lottery draft, but with the Drake and Kendrick beef, bro, like I know we were just talking off air. One, to me, it was fun. I don't care if y'all don't care about it, but I did want to talk to Roosh about it. I think like having two heavyweights being able to go at each other like that is really, really, it was fun to see. Like you don't really get to see that. It's like the basketball equivalent of
Kobe and LeBron,
two best players guarding each other, like one-on-one the whole damn game. And so you really don't get to see that.
It's like Kobe and LeBron. We never got to see them in the finals, Even when we almost got it, like we didn't get it, right? Because Orlando upset Cleveland, or I don't know if it was an upset, but I think it was. Felt like one. But, man, yeah, we don't get to see heavyweights trade haymakers. You know what I mean? I mean, these dudes aired it out. They emptied the clips at each other, I can't recall seeing something like that. And I remember I was in L.A. when Drake dropped – I was on a plane, actually, when Drake dropped Push-Ups. And I remember – hearing it, like we got the rental car and we're driving through LA, and I was like, I gotta listen to this. I got to see what he said. And I listened to it and I was like, is this really happening? I can't believe it. That's and then crazy. Nothing happened. Right. And then Kendrick dropped Euphoria. And I was like, yo, I cannot, is this really going to happen? And I listened to it and I was like, oh my God, this is full on. Like,
what was your favorite track out of the whole beef?
It's not like, for me, it's Not Like Us.
Yeah.
What about you?
I would say I go back and forth between Not Like Us and
Euphoria.
I like Euphoria. Meet the Grams, bro.
Meet the Grams.
I mean, that to me, I had said this on Twitter. It is the mood of that song is so dark, bro. It reminds me of Biggie's Suicidal Thoughts.
Yeah,
because there's a few songs you could listen to and you feel weird listening to them. That song made me feel like that. I was like, and to me, as for like understanding what music does and kind of get you to certain feelings, to know that he intentionally made a song to get you to that feeling, and then backdoor to say, you know what, maybe I got a little too dark. Here's a club banger.
Yes, it's crazy.
It's like, yeah, bro, he did that.
It's crazy. It's a haunting song. Meet the Grams. It's haunting.
Yeah, definitely a dope thing. Do you think there's a way that Drake comes out of this
victorious?
Not victorious. I mean, the battle's over, but I'm talking about just like.
Does he reputationally?
Yeah. What does that look like going forward?
So look, he's Drake, right? I mean, he's the biggest, probably the biggest, one of the biggest music stars in the world, if not the biggest, right? He's a pop star. I mean, he's a rapper too, but he's a pop star, right? So he's going to be Teflon in that regard. But I think the Culture Vulture stuff hit. I think the Culture Vulture stuff will stick. That whole breakdown of Atlanta and like how he's just like,
oh my God,
Like, how do you, if you're from Atlanta and if you're those guys or tapped in with their camps, how do you listen to that and not go, oh my God?
Colonizer. I mean, calling the dude a colonizer is nuts. That is nuts though. But for the people that are still here listening to this podcast, the Rockets did get the third pick in the lottery.
Yes.
So we can talk about that now. So the Rockets got the third pick in the lottery.
I can't believe it.
This is the Warriors and Cavs down 3-1, and LeBron with the AirPods in his ear just at the interview table of comebacks. Like I did not I made a video like a few days ago about basically like, we're getting the 9th pick. I don't care. We're probably going to trade it. I'm not even wasting my time doing any type of draft evals this year.
Yep.
And just like that, the Rockets are number 3. What was your initial reactions from seeing that?
I'll tell you. Let me tell you. So I've been a little, I've been offline for the most part. I've been a little tuned out. I'm hibernating in the off season to recharge my Rockets battery. Right. It's the first off season in a while that I've felt comfortable about where they're at. Where I'm just like, okay, there's not much to do this summer. They spent their cap space. This is all about internal growth and maybe making a trade or whatever. So I've been tuned out, just like you. Or not that you've been tuned out, but I have not been looking at draftees. I haven't been looking at anything. So I was hooping, actually, when the lottery happened. I'm not going to lie to you. I didn't even know it was at that time. I did not know it was happening because I was like, I've been so tuned out. and it's also random, middle of the day on a Sunday. It's just random.
Isn't that normally what it is? I don't even remember.
I don't think so.
At night, right?
It's usually at night, and at least once, or maybe most of these. I'm pretty sure most of these lotteries have been in the middle of the week. Because
Thursday or something like that.
Yeah. Right. Because I have memories of like, oh shit, let me get off work quick and go pay attention to the lottery. Right. So on a Sunday midday, so I was hooping and I had my headphones in, my AirPods in, and I got a text message from someone that, I only text every now and then, and they just said woohoo, and I was like, what the fuck? Why is that person texting me woohoo? So I texted them back, and then they were like, third pick, and I was like, what do you mean? And then I was like, yo, the Nets pick? I was like, the Nets pick got. That's crazy. We jumped. So that was my reaction. What about you?
No, I was shocked. I was shocked. At first, I didn't understand what was going on. I suck with all this like 7%.
The math probability. And,
I don't waste my brain on that. I know there's people that are good at that, so I let them tell me what to think. So when it was like it got to 9, I think Memphis or somebody I was like, what is going on? And people were celebrating on a timeline. So I'm like, how do y'all know this already?
Yeah.
But apparently there's some chain of events that happened when we didn't get that.
Basically, there's a specific order based on record. I think 14 through 5. And if any of the teams that are supposed to fall, right? Sequentially,
that means somebody got flipped out.
Exactly. If one of those teams does not show up in that slot, then whatever team that is, they jumped into the top 4.
So I seen the tweets. I was like, okay, we're doing this. And like when it went into the thing and they showed Coach Udoka, and shout out to him for not smiling. That dude, man, I don't know. He's just such a sicko. But he was sitting there. The commentator was like, look at all the smiles on stage. He looked like he just like was angry and, 4, and then we get the third pick and everything just changed. To me, like what I saw Stone talk about early on, I don't know if it was an article. I think that was the article that Jonathan Fagan had done a few days before, talking about that basically the Rockets are looking to trade the pick. And now, to me, being 3 opens up a whole world of possibilities that we're going to talk about as far as what they can do. And to me, like you said, this is like for them the best outcome they could get, given that they lost their pick to OKC. And you still end up with a number 3 overall pick. Obviously this draft is kind of whack. I started going through the first 3 prospects on Jonathan Gavoni's board. I already hate this draft. I don't know about you. I don't see anybody that I'm like, damn, I got to go get this guy.
Right. So I agree with that, which is why it's almost like, damn, it's like awesome that we got the third pick, but it's like, damn, in this draft, like, God. So I will say the Rockets draft strategy in terms of how they communicate externally during this lottery period during the rebuild has been very, for my liking, a little too loose lip, right? Like they don't hide their cards. And you could argue, who cares? Why would you hide your cards? I don't know. I think there's always an advantage to people not knowing what your intentions are, or at least not fully knowing. So I don't like that they're already like, oh, we're probably going to trade the pick, because you at least want people to, think that to at least not know what you're going to do with it. And if you're going to openly talk about trading the pick, you better hope there's a market. And given what you just said, that there's no like, surefire stud necessarily on paper.
I would say to Stone's in the post, he had a press conference on Skype from his phone in a hotel. It looked like a FaceTime with like my mom. It was really bad.
I saw a clip. I was like,
yeah,
what?
Like I thought, is this on his TikTok? But so he basically redacted some of that and said that he is open to everything, in a Stone way, saying something without saying anything. He basically in like 2 sentences said they would either trade or not trade the pick or talk to teams or not talk to teams. So
classic.
I feel like it might have changed the mood of everything a little bit, but he did compliment that at the high end of the draft that they feel like there's a lot of top prospects, and then they're still looking at best player available because he doesn't feel like fit. It's really hard for his words. It's hard for players to make it in the NBA. So trying to draft a fit guy that doesn't make it is, you rather just get a guy you feel like is going to be a pro for X amount of years. So.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, look, I think we talked about this in a previous episode earlier in the season. But this is an ideal way to tank. I mean, this is like the perfect way to tank.
Yeah.
You win 40 games, right? You have that huge jump in just sheer win number. You legitimately compete to make a play-in spot, and you do it despite injuries, right? They had a lot of injuries. Şengün missing the last 20 something games. Tari missing 3/4 of the season. Yada yada. And then you go land the number 3 pick. Like that's how you tank. So Rockets are, and I'm not saying that that they tanked, and I'm not saying that it was on purpose or whatever. But like at the end of the day, results are what matters, and that's the result they got. So that's good.
Yeah.
So I guess that gets us to the question, and I think I know your answer, and I think we agree on this. But I'll ask you first: do you draft a pick? Do you trade out for like a star or a veteran player, or do you trade back and try to get some future assets and go get maybe a guy like Dalton Connect or Necht or whatever his name is, someone that that fits.
All right, let's do it like this. So we're gonna talk through each scenario and kind of what that looks like for the Rockets. Then we can say what we would do at the end. So first, we can start off with drafting the pick. Now, looking at this draft, like I said, I'm not a draft expert. Like to me, there's too much. Like to me, the best people that do draft, that's all they focus on, even during the regular season. And there's people that cover just the regular season with the NBA or the actual basketball that's playing in the NBA. There's people that cover college. I don't think it's possible to be like really elite at doing all three because there's just so much information. So yes. I'm not a big draft person. Like I don't follow college kids. I don't care. I don't like college basketball that much. I don't like semi-pros because it's just a different. And to me, that's important because when I evaluate these players, I try to imagine what they look like on the NBA at the NBA level against NBA players. I don't like a lot of these players. I'm not going to lie. They have major flaws in their game.
And also real quick, Frank, to your point, there are people that are really good at it. Yeah. I try to leave it to those people because, I focus on the game, the NBA game and what we watch instead of, doing that stuff. However, I do think it's important for, at least for me, maybe not everyone, but in order to really understand what these guys are capable of, you have to see them in live action.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You have to see them in person, physically against whatever competition they're against and evaluate them that way. Because I feel like you can watch YouTube clips all day, but you can,
highlights. So. And even the breakdowns that people have that are of people, a lot of it is not saying they're biased on purpose, but when you're breaking down a player, you're just presenting your thoughts. So to me, the way I just tweeted this, in fact, that the way I draft, like I do draft coverage, when I have to do it is I look at basically those breakdowns from trusted people like Gavoni or Vicini, and then I watch full game clips. Like I have to sit down. That's why I can't do it. It's just too many. I have to sit and watch full because I'm watching off ball action. I'm watching what they do when the ball's in their hands, how they move. They're like just random stuff that has nothing to do with highlights. IQ, I need to gauge all of that as much as possible to know how it translates to the NBA. And to me, this draft is filled with a lot of maybe good role players. There are some guys that have some really high upside, but if you're going to bet, just the way the NBA goes, a lot of them probably won't hit their upside. And so for the Rockets, if we do draft, I'm not going to side with Stone on this one because I don't feel like the difference between a best player available and a fit is that wide of a margin. In fact, it's kind of so intertwined that you might as well draft for fit with this. And if I'm drafting for fit, I mean, there's two archetypes that I'm looking at in this draft. You're talking about a big man. And, some people like Sarr, some people like Klingon, you know what I mean? And you're talking about shooters, Shepard, and there's the French kid. I'm going to butcher his last name. It's like Rishashar or something like that.
Oh, but I think it's Reiseker, Zachary Reiseker.
It's something you got to put some I heard the guy said it was like French, but I like him. So to me, if I'm going to draft, I'm drafting for fit. I'm not with Stone where you draft because BPA is going to be Sarr. And I'm not going to hold y'all. I'm very skeptical about Sarr. He just looks like a pedestrian to me.
He looks slow, man.
Yeah. So I don't know how you feel. So what is your draft philosophy if we did have to draft the pick?
I mean, I completely agree with you. We're talking big man. We're talking shooter. That's what I see. I don't want, and again, I'll caveat it with, I haven't really done my homework. These are just my gut thoughts.
Same.
But what's his name? Rob Dillingham.
Yeah.
Reed Shepard. Like, I don't want an undersized scoring guard, right? I don't think this team needs that. And I don't think you're going to get anything out of drafting one of those players because they're just going to be sitting behind Amen Thompson and Fred VanVleet and Jalen Green. And, so I don't know. So I think you do that. It would be a little, maybe a little disappointing to use the number 3 pick on like a guy like Walker Kessler, which is what I think maybe a Klingon will be. The need is there. The fit is there. It would just feel like, damn, we got the number 3 pick and we just drafted like a defensive, a one side of the game only type player, right? Specialist type player. But my gut likes, I don't know how to say his name. I think it's Dalton
I think
Connect.
it's Dalton Connect. Yeah.
Yeah. Out of Tennessee. Solid size shooter, movement shooter, which is what this team desperately needs.
Yeah.
And he can attack closeout. So he's not just like a Garrison Matthews out there, just shooting only. So I think if you're taking the player, it's something like that. But that being said, if it is Dalton Connect, for example, I wouldn't take him at number 3, which would lead us to option scenario number 2, which is trading down.
Yes. Trading back. And I think for this scenario, to me, this is a scenario that is kind of threading the needle between all 3 of the scenarios we're going to talk about. Yep. Because honestly, the draft is so close. I know people are going to differ. I'm going to have Cooper Klein on later in the week. I'm going to talk to him about some of the prospects because he is one of those guys that that's his main bread and butter is draft. But to me, just personally, just from what I've watched over the past year from it's so close that you can trade back, draft a player that helps you right now, and possibly get some good assets for a better draft in the future.
Yep.
And if you wanted to get real freaky, you could still try to get a player by trading back. And I think to me that is where I think it's gonna take some elite GMing for Stone to be able to
You're
really
saying get a future first round pick, a player, and move down?
Yes.
Okay. That would possibly require what's up?
Yeah, depending on the player. I know what you're probably it may require us sending out something. Now
do we have agreement on who we would like that player to be?
Nah, I don't know who it would be. There's very like if it's gonna be a big player, like a big player, the number 3 pick, and we're talking about like what are some of the names that are out there? Donovan.
You're talking like that. Oh, you're talking
there's levels. That's the top highest level.
So, but hold on. I would call that trading out, unless you think we could pull off something like that and trade down.
I think you could probably do both. I think that's the easiest would be trading out. I think you could trade back to a specific group of teams that fall in that contender bracket that are that far back but want to pivot. I don't think like the Cavs aren't one of them to me. I'm thinking of teams like the Clippers or, the theoretically Warriors, Lakers, that veteran team that is in the back end wants to get in and they have salaries or players that are maybe not like the best players in the world, but some really, really good players that they may want to move on from.
So I will go out and say, I don't think we're going to, if we're trading back and keeping the pick, meaning not keeping the pick, but meaning we're going to take
in the draft. Yeah.
In the first round. Right.
So maybe like 22nd,
wherever it is.
Yeah.
If you're doing that, I don't think you're going to come back with a player of the Donovan Mitchell tier, but
okay, maybe not. Depends on what you're trading. It depends on what you're trading.
So there are levels to trading back. You're talking, It seems like your mind is like trade back to the 20s or the teens or something.
Right.
I'm talking like trade back to 7 or 6 or 7.
That's one level. So if I say the biggest like trade back would be trade back and go home run swinging, then to me, the realistic, what really is going to happen is going to be trading back, like you said, to like the 10th pick, 11th pick. That would involve possibly just trading back and the team moving up and giving you, a future protected first in another draft and maybe some seconds. I think that's probably the most safest thing. I also think there's another tier of trading back that involves role players where you could trade back and maybe you send out salary. And instead of getting a future first, you might get some future seconds and a good role player to add to your team right now. For me, preferably, that is, if we did trade the trade back scenario, that is what I would want because you kind of killing 2 birds, recoup assets to help you make a trade in the future, and you improve the roster right now. To me, that's probably what I'm looking at.
What I would prefer mostly, as we sit here at this moment, and then we can talk about trading out. But I would prefer moving back to like 6 or 7, just picking up a first round pick next year, because chances are you're going to lose your first round pick to OKC again, right? I think next season it's the Rockets' own pick is top 10 protected, I think, which means that if the Rockets are not one of the 10 worst teams, then they lose their pick to Oklahoma City. So I consider that sunk cost. That's out the door. So recouping a pick to replace that lost pick while also having the swap from Brooklyn, knowing that, you know, wherever they land, you know, you could swap with them. I think that would be nice. And then you move down, you know, 6, 7, and you take Dalton Connect and you fill the need, and you just kick that asset one year down the line. To me, that's both realistic. And it fits the needs. I just think you need a player, or you need to find a team that falls in love with the player that, you know, that's going to be number 3. Like all of a sudden, I don't know who's picking 6 or 7, but I don't know.
I know Detroit is 5th though.
Yeah, damn. Oh man, it's got to be bad to be a Pistons fan right now. But okay, let's just say it's the Pistons. I'm just making it up. But let's say the Pistons fall in love with, you know, Nikola Topic, and Sar goes first and Klingon goes second, or they fall in love with Donovan Klingon. I know they have Jalen Duran, whatever. But you know what I mean? That happens. And then you're like, well, hey, give us, you know, this pick or whatever the hell, some first pick that you have from New York from a previous trade, and you want to give it over, whatever. We'll take that. We'll swap places. We'll take the guy that fits. That's how I'm thinking about it.
Yeah, I mean that's probably most likely what ends up happening if they did the trade back thing. I think one of the things is that with the optionality that they have, you start thinking about the roster too. I do question whether Ime actually wants to add another mouth to feed, because you know what I mean.
Or 7.
I know, number 7, right? Having 7 first round picks is crazy. There is no way you can fully develop, in my opinion. You can't develop that many players to reach their full potential. So unless they're going to be sending out players, it just gets, to me, it's a wasted pick if you draft a player like with the number 5 or 6 pick and you're intended for them to be a bench player. To me, you might as well go all the way out. You feel me? Just drop out, go to the mid-teens or go to the 20s. Unless,
you know, I don't know if I got to say, I don't know if I agree with you.
Oh, what's your counter to that? Let me hear.
So my counter is, I mean, we see these players that, and I wish I had an example off the top of my head, but I don't. And if you have one, let me know. But we do see rookies come in and contribute to winning teams as like bench. You know, Christian Braun did it when the Nuggets won the title, for example.
Okay, what's the? I not to see. I talked about this in my last video. What is the one thing these teams all have in common? That they are already winning. Like they have Jokic, they have Luka with Lively. Most of those teams are veteran contenders. So the argument of like a young player contributing to a winning team is usually valid when you have a core that is already contending. Because
I would argue Minnesota, Cat and Ant, Gobert is like their Fred VanVleet.
Who's the young player?
Ant. That's contributing
who's the young draft pick? Like they are basically. I mean, if like Şengün and Jalen were carrying us, I wouldn't say it's like that would be the same as drafting a guy that's a rookie. So that's the way I look. Like we have a bunch of like, we think of it as like puppies. Like you got a bunch of puppies and you got to feed them, and a lot of mouths to feed there, and you just keep adding more puppies, and you have a limited amount of food. And I'm not one to say about, we've talked about the minutes thing in the past. Of course, you can get minutes around, but I'm talking about like real investing development time into a young player. I just don't see a world where like Braun makes sense. He's a 2nd round pick or late first, whatever he was, and he knows what his role is. If you bring in like Matas Buzelis into the team, he might just be better than the Man Thompson. You know what I mean? And
think?
I wouldn't want to just typecast a player. Maybe Ime doesn't even think like that. He's like, I don't care. Whoever is the better is going to play, and we'll just move on from the other. So maybe they have that approach. I don't know. It just gets – I wonder if that goes through their mind.
I would say that you're not necessarily wrong. This is kind of a weak example, but it is an example. The kid out of he's like a very minor player, but like, was it Windler? I think it was Windler or that like undrafted shooter that Cleveland had. Cleveland had somebody.
Oh yeah. Yes,
and I think the undrafted shooter was this season. I forgot his name. Windler, I think, was last season. I can't remember if it was him. It was some white boy off the bench, I believe. And they weren't winning, and he was a contributor. Now that's a very random. Like, is that a good example? No, it's not. But I would say the Rockets themselves this season had a lot of players like that I didn't think Amen Thompson was going to contribute to winning on this specific team. I didn't think this team was ready for his level of contribution to make them win games like consistently, right? But that was the case. Tari Eason helps you win games, and he's just like, role player, right? So I agree with you, but I do think that it would just make sense on paper if Dalton Knecht is, legit and ready to go, at least at movement shooting at the very least, and is serviceable on defense.
His name is Sam Merrill.
There you go. That's it. That's it. Thank you.
Yes.
Sorry.
I mean, I guess my thing is I would have a cutoff to where that type of player would come in. Like Sam Merrill is not a top 10 pick. Neither is a lot of these guys. So if to me, if you're going to draft a guy that high, I don't even in a weak draft, and not this draft we're calling it weak. A lot of these players could turn into like really, really good NBA players, and that's usually what happens. Like you go through some of the worst drafts, and you look like, damn, he was drafted there. Damn, he was drafted there. There's a lot of players that are in quote unquote weak drafts, so we don't know who the diamonds and the roughs are. I just think that to me, even with the trading back thing, the reason I would do that is to draft for fit. And I think to me, that's the overarching thing is we shouldn't take one. You can't take a swing on a player that's going to be a role player. I don't see swinging on like just draft a shooter, right? Get a big man. Just get somebody that actually complements what you do and try to keep building your team from there. Or just we can do what we're going to talk about now, which is trade out. So
real quick.
Go ahead.
Walker Kessler was just a good one.
11th, 12th pick. I think that would probably be
no. Walker Kessler was like 20.
He was number 20? I thought he was like
I think. Let me look it up.
I mean, he's a player that I think to me like that Klingon, whatever his name, kid.
Yep.
To me, that's the range where he falls in. And I see people have him like in the top 5.
Yeah, well, I agree with you, and that's why like drafting a Walker Kessler type player 3rd overall would be like, damn, nasty. It would feel like a letdown, right?
Yeah. So
let me see. He got drafted, Walker Kessler, 22nd overall.
22nd. Damn, I don't know why I thought he went higher. See that's to me, you can still find. I mean, some of our best players, Tari and Şengün, were 17, 16. Like you can find really good players that late in the draft. To me, this draft is just filled with a bunch of just mid-lottery level talent, and there's nothing wrong with that. But to me, like strategically for the Rockets, they really have to think about what makes this team better. All right, so the third position, and you can talk, say what you're going to say, and I'll set you up for this. The third position is trading out. So what are you looking at with that?
Okay. One last argument for the last bucket for trading down or drafting the player that we were talking about. Is it could potentially make someone else expendable. It could give you some flexibility to include someone in a trade because you're like, yo, I got this kid ready to go. So
Jaylen,
just a thought.
Go ahead.
That's not what I'm saying. Don't kill me.
Roosh should stop bubble Jaylen. Someone in Jaylen got not playing, but yeah, go
ahead. Anyways, trading out. All right, this is where it gets interesting. So if I'm trading out, I'm starting with a package of the number 3, and this is why I asked you earlier, who's the player? The player that I would start with would be Dillon Brooks. What does number 3 and Dillon Brooks get me? $20 million in salary. Maybe you get a player back. Maybe you add some salary to it. I don't know. But he's a if you're talking one of like a contender or something, he can plug in, he can contribute. Like he's got some value. That's where I would start personally. And then maybe you add like the expiring salary on top of that, right? Like Jock or whatever,
So Dillon is at 20, and I think they have about on another like almost 20 something.
Yeah.
And
I think it's Tate's around 7 million expiring. Jock is like 8. Jeff is like 8, I think. And then who's the other one?
Not Bo. Oh, Steven Adams, I think, is like.
Steven Adams is expiring. But they had salary before Steven Adams. Who was it?
It's just Tate.
It was probably the guys that were on the 1-year deals, like Aaron Holiday.
I think it was with Adams, Green, Tate, and Londale. You gets you close to 30. So that's a significant amount of salary, and I do agree. If they do trading out to me completely, it's probably going to be a player that you're getting back. And I feel like, to me personally, I think that's on the table big time for them. I think the reason I say that is because I just don't feel like them missing the playoffs this year, as much as Coach Udoka and Rafael are standing packed with the team that they have. I think I have no insight on this. I just think internally they want more, and they don't want to have to possibly be in this situation next year. And I think that for Ime more than anything. So I think this is where the big names come in, and this is where the possible aggregation of our current players is going to happen, if it does happen, because to get a big name, that means you're not getting assets back. You're going to be giving out assets. And starting off with the number 3 pick, I think having a defined pick in a draft is important, and is worth something, because it's not just some amorphous future pick. Like, you have the 3rd pick. So that's X player on the Rockets, one of the core 6, Matas Buzelis, then you can throw in some future first in there and go get the guy that you want. Now, the question is, who is worth that? The names I've heard that have been floated around, I know Donovan Mitchell, Mikal Bridges, obviously.
No to Donovan Mitchell.
I'm not. I love Donovan Mitchell in the vacuum, but for this team, I don't see what he brings that would just take us over the top.
If we're talking Mikal Bridges, I'm playing hardball with Brooklyn. I'm gonna be like, look, this is your pick. Like, I'm not giving you the farm for Mikal Bridges. You can take this dude and maybe something else, and that's it.
Would you do their swap back and this pick for Mikal and salary going out for us, just like that?
So you're saying 2024 number 3 overall pick, and then relinquish the swap back to Brooklyn for next season.
One really premium first and a future first. That's a lot.
The deal maker in me doesn't. So the deal maker in me does not like it. The flip side to that would be, do the Rockets really care about their first round pick next year? I don't know. Now, the question is that the best they could get? That's the question, right? Is Mikal Bridges the best they could get for that package? If the answer to that's yes, I think they got to go back to the table and consider, like, all right, is this just too low a value for all that? And if it is, maybe you don't make the deal. I'm not crazy about Mikal Bridges. I like him. I don't think he puts this team over the top. I think he makes them better. I think he makes them like 5 to 8 wins better. And his contract is good. So it's not like I wouldn't do it, but I'd want to shoot higher if you're going to go that route.
Yeah, I definitely. I've heard Lauri Markkanen. I really don't. I mean, I like him. I don't know. It maybe, but to me, like for this time for the Rockets, like this summer, is really going to define like what their next 2-3 years is going to look like with the decision that they make with this draft pick, because I feel like it's that crucial. And I'm going to contextualize this in the playoffs. What I'm watching in these playoffs right now, with the way players are playing, especially at the second round level, where every weakness is being maximized by the other team. I just feel like we just need players that can help us right now. And because our young guys, they're still learning, they're going to have a lot of flaws and things like that. So to me, regardless of what happens, they need to come out with at least 1 or 2 vets this year that could actually help them play and contribute winning basketball. The development thing, it's running out of runway. Like the older like Jalen's class of players get, the less time you will have to actually invest in developing a young player. Because
I don't think Ime gives a shit about developing right now either. I think if I had to put money on it, I'm guessing here. I'm guessing here, but I have to. My guess would be that Ime is in that room like, yo, I don't give a damn about number 3. Go get me,
Probably
someone who can play.
This draft.
So
in this draft, maybe that's why he looks so pissed. He's probably like, in a trash draft, man. Y'all got me sitting up here in my suit.
Oh man, I mean, come on. He called LeBron a soft ass boy. Like, of course, he's sitting up there like, man, I don't give a damn about whoever this kid is. So, so look, and Mikal Bridges, I mean, the wing defense would be insane. Tari, Jabari, Mikal, Dylan. You got 2 elite guys and 2 guys who can play some wing defense. And look, he can shoot threes. I know people will go to what he is in Brooklyn, and they're like, oh, he's not all that. And I agree. I remember when that trade happened, and people were like, oh, Mikal Bridges is the next guy. I remember thinking at the time, like, do I just have Mikal Bridges totally misunderstood? Because to me, he's like a really good 3-and-D guy. I don't think he's a number 1. And then he went to Brooklyn, and he started going crazy. And I was like, wow, okay, I guess I'm just totally off base here. And then he came back down to earth, and it was like, all right, that's more of what I expected. But as like a number 3 or an interchangeable number 4, number 2, number 3, whatever, he was really good in Phoenix. I mean, when he doesn't have to be the focal point of an offense and he can save his legs and he gets some open looks, he shoots the shit out of the basketball, and he still defends really well. I know people say his defense slipped. I think defense slipping, unless you've physically changed, I don't think defense slips. I just think people don't appreciate how hard it is to be a number 1 offensive player and continue to maintain that level of defense. It's extremely hard. But I wouldn't be disappointed with them. But look, the names on the market, like to your point, they're just not. They don't jump out to me. Donovan Mitchell, Lauri Markkanen's super nice, but defensively, like, is that what we want to do up front? We already got Şengün, we got Steven Adams. Like, I don't know if that's what we need. Karl Anthony Towns was a name that was floated a lot. Probably not anymore, obviously. But no, thank you. He needs a specific, roster, and Minnesota's doing really well with it, but that's not the roster we have. So, and then you look in the playoffs, and man, the teams that went big and took a swing got bounced, and the teams that did it homegrown and drafted and developed, it's a new era in the NBA, which is pretty cool, where these are the types of teams right now that are succeeding, and the Rockets have that formula. So I don't know. I just can't get on board with trading for a guy like Donovan Mitchell, who is 6'1", undersized, and needs like Jared Allen and Evan Mobley out there to make it work, because we don't have those guys. So
yeah, I'm 100% with that. So what is your preferred out of the 3? What would you say is like your preferred method for the Rockets to take?
I think I'd go trade.
I mean, it might change. Disclaimer, guys, we might change our minds.
I know the comments. Oh, yeah, sorry. I'm just going to throw it out. I'd say trade down.
Okay.
I would trade down. Ideally, stay within the top 10. So, okay, I would go trade down, but there's levels to it. As I sit here today, doing very minimal to zero homework on the draftees, not knowing my shit for the most part, just knowing what I like with my gut, trading down, picking up a future first-round pick, and drafting Dalton Connect sounds good to me. You get the shooter, which is a huge need for the Rockets, and you basically lose nothing. You pick up an extra asset. You still get a guy that fits what you're trying to do. To me, that's a win-win. It sets you up nicely for the future. It gives you a guy who can contribute right now. That's level 1. Level 2 is if you're going to go back, like 15, pick number 15, pick number 20 or something, I'm trying to pick up a couple extra picks in the first round, or a first-round pick, and like you said, a veteran that can play. I think I would prefer the Dalton Connect route, unless they go back and they get some kind of role player, which is like an unnamed, I don't know who that would be. But if it was someone that would make me go, oh shit, that's nice, then I would choose that. That's where I'm at. What about you?
I'm in the same boat, but I'm going to say that I think my ideal would be trading back probably in the later lotteries in the mid-teens, and drafting there. And I think threading the needle of and I think it is important to draft a player, one, especially later, you start thinking about money. The fact that these are going to be pretty much minimum contracts. And if you can find a player that contributes that at that mid level in the first round, that is actually a decent player that fits, then you've hit a bunch of boxes there. And I think the teams that are willing to trade up to 3 from like 15 or 16, they're going to have to pay something for it. And even if it's, like you said, a future protected first and a couple seconds, or even if you can get a decent role player that also fits a need in doing that, maybe you take off the seconds and you just get a future protected first, a role player, and then you get to draft blah, blah, blah player in the mid-teens that addresses a need that you can actually have. And once again, the money, plus they know coming in that, hey, I'm a role player because I was drafted this late. I think that'll be the perfect needle for them to thread, because there will be no pressure for them to play. You can take your time with developing them, sending them out to the G League. We as fans will not expect anything from them starting off. And you just kind of, to me, that's the way you can kind of pull these type of players along. And I think I'm trying to think of a team that does a great job doing that, where, well, it used to be the Warriors, where
Miami.
You said, yeah, like Miami, where they draft a guy, you never hear about them for like 3 years, and all of a sudden they're hitting game winners in the playoffs. Yep. So I think that'll be the ideal route. But I think all around, man, it's great day to be a Houston Rocket. The rebuild.
I'll tell you this: if somebody's coming from the mid-teens, 15 to 3, raw dog. No protections.
Yeah, you got to go.
I need the pick. Give me the pick. Ain't no protections on the pick. I will say that.
I don't know if they're going to do that in next year's draft, bro. Next year's draft is going to be that's going to be the one that I think a lot of people, and I'm not mad at Stone for trying to secure something, even if it's just like a top 10 pick next year.
Well, that's what I'm saying, because that's why a future a first-round pick next year would be nice, because the Rockets they're not going to have theirs unless they suck, right? Like, if the Rockets keep their pick next season, it means next season was a huge disappointment.
Yes.
And the only other way right now, currently, that they would get a top 10 pick would be if Brooklyn does it again, And I don't know. I mean, things move too quickly to predict. Like, I can't imagine Brooklyn's going to sit around. Whether the moves they make will be successful, I don't know. But they got all those picks from Phoenix, and they got a bunch of picks, I think, from one other team, not Dallas.
Dallas gave them a couple seconds. I think they a first and 2 seconds for Kyrie. They got all the picks from Phoenix. I think Milwaukee, they did something with them. They have they have more picks than us.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So anyways, they're going to do something, and whether or not it works, I don't know. But Mikal Bridges, Cam Thomas, Nick Claxton, if they can go swing for somebody, I don't know if they'll win a title, but they can make a play in.
All right. So last thing, obviously, this is going to be like a ongoing saga with the Rockets and with Rafael Stone, is how this this lottery pick impacts the kind of the perception of the James Harden trade. Obviously, we know that he was criticized, including I criticized him for not trying to get a player back in this trade. And so far right now, with the way the Harden trade is falling out, it's Tari Eason and this third overall pick.
It's Tari Eason, half of Cam Whitmore in this pick. Cam Whitmore was obtained with so they got the pick for Jared Allen,
right?
From Cleveland, and
that
the Cleveland
swap pick that they used with the Clippers on the EG thing.
Yeah,
right?
yes.
Okay.
The Cleveland pick came via Milwaukee, right? So the Rockets took the pick from Cleveland that came from Milwaukee
to swap,
which they got from Jared Allen, and they used that to swap with the Clippers and Eric Gordon. So Eric Gordon is the other half of that trade. So
so which half of Cam are we talking about? The offensive, when he's making all the shots, Cam, who we're gonna give it to, or the J.R. Smith? I'm gonna shoot the regard. But regardless, so just let's just, for the argument's sake, Tari in this pick, half of Cam. What is your perception of that trade as it stands right now so far?
So that trade for me is always and will always be broken into two parts: the players they received in the deal and the draft compensation they received in the deal. When we're talking about these types of trades, teams usually get the player. The Rockets were criticized for not getting the player, and this many years later, it's kind of hard to it's hard to say they got a player back. They didn't, right? They got Oladipo, and then they flipped him, and that was that. And they didn't flip him for anything that stayed. Pelicans traded AD, and they got Lonzo Ball, whoever else I can't, was it Drew
Ingram,
Ingram,
Hart.
Josh Hart, right? And then the picks, and those are three pretty good players to get. The Thunder got Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, MVP candidate, right? So you get the idea. The Rockets failed on that front of the Harden trade, unfortunately, and that's just going to be what it is going to be. On the draft compensation, I always liked the draft piece of it, always did. I mean, 4 picks, 4 swaps, protected you against the draft compensation you lost for trading Chris Paul to the Thunder in the Russell Westbrook trade. So all that was always good. It's, so far, it still leaves something to be desired. If this number 3 pick was going to be like, one of those holy shit type names, then maybe that would change, because then that's your young star. As projected right now, that pick most likely won't be a star. Maybe that changes in history. I don't know. But just the way it's projected to be. So it's cool. It's good. It's definitely good. There's no way to say it's not good. Getting the 3rd pick is much better than the 9th or the 10th pick, right? Tari Eason, great player. Half of Cam Whitmore, exciting so far. We'll see what he becomes. It's still not, when you think of James Harden scoring, 36 points a game, 30-something a game the year after that with Russ, it still leaves something to be desired, but it does feel a little bit better. What about you?
I think it's pending. It's still pending right now, obviously, and I agree with to me the player part was the issue, and to me the fact that they dragged it out so long to me impacted the level of player they can get back. I think that was a tactical issue just from the outset. Yep. Like, you should have just done it earlier in the summer when he had multiple options, instead of when he soured his own deal to the point where it's down to 2 teams. But even regardless of all that, it's pending, because Tari Eason, as much as we love him, he didn't play this last season, and he's a role player. And then this 3rd pick, we don't know what it's going to be. If they turn this 3rd pick and some future picks into like a star player that comes in, helps us become a contender, then that trade is a home run. But I still think there's a world where it could be a home run, or it could just be a bad trade. And there's a world where it could be a bad trade and the Rockets are still good. And to me, that's the best thing out of this, is that it could be a moot point just off of some of the development and talent that we already have on the team. But if somebody wanted to isolate that trade in itself, to me, if the Rockets, for example, never make it over the hump and win a championship in this dispensation of Rockets basketball, then you could go back and say, like, damn, they kind of goofed that part. But I think with Jalen, hopefully, with Şengün, hopefully, with Amen and Cam and Tari and Bari, hopefully they make some moves. All of that becomes moot, and it'll just be another like what if in history. But if we're talking about just that trade itself, is still pending, we just have to wait and see what any of these players become and these future picks become.
So I agree. I mean, it is pending for sure, and we'll see what it becomes. They only have, unless not counting the permutations that happen out of these moves, meaning not counting what they flip, if they flip this number 3 pick, what they turn that into. If it just is the number 3 pick, for now, in terms of me discussing it right now, I'm just viewing it like that. They only have 3 potential assets left from it, live assets, and that's 2 swaps. That's the thing. 2 of them are swaps, and one of them is a pick. Next season, 2025, swap. 2026, actual pick, like it was this season. 2027 is again the swap, and then that's the end of the Harden trade. So my point is, if 25 and 27, or if one of those seasons, if that swap isn't a big deal, then that also hurts, because it's kind of just like a negated asset. It's like, let's say we swap from, the Rockets end up with the 16th pick and Brooklyn ends up with the 12th pick, and we swap 4 spots. Like, okay, that's cool, but for James Harden, I'm moving up 4 spots. Like, just kind of, but we'll see what happens. So,
yeah. And I think all of it'll be judged on the team's success. It will come back up if the Rockets don't do anything like significant with this core, or with this like permutation of players that they have. Let's say in 3 years, we're still like the 7th seed or the 8th seed. Then you might see stories start coming out like, did the Rockets mess up but I think as long as the players that they have actually produce, and it'll just be like a secondary thing for that. But to me, this summer, once again, I've been saying this all year, so pivotal for the franchise, because you can go either way. There is a like where you get into just being a team that's on the bubble of being a playoff team, and being stuck there for a couple of years, or you could take the jump. And I feel like they have the talent to take the jump. It's going to be some elite GMing by Rafael Stone. He has the tools. He's been given more assets to make those moves. I feel comfortable with Ime Udoka in the room to make those decisions with him. And I think that's really where we're going to have to win this summer, is going to be for him to really kind of kill it as a GM. And I'm feeling okay. I'm not too worried about him this year. I don't know if it's the fact that, like I said, Ime is there, but I'm not as worried as I was when Stephen Silas was the coach. I don't know about you.
I agree with that, man. And I think that's put it in perspective for me, right? Some of the moves we made in the Silas era were head scratchers to me. Now with Ime, some of these moves, it feels like some of the gambles have worked, right? Like you get the number 3 pick. That's a successful gamble. And that's like, okay, all right. That's the kind of move that you sit back and say, all right, they saw, they had a vision, they executed the vision, they got a little bit lucky, but that's part of the game and that's what happened. So you can roll with it. And I will say, before I forget, I remain, and we should all remain so happy that the Rockets did not fall for the Ben Simmons trap when they traded James Harden. That would have been catastrophic. And the Rockets, and I know this verified on my own, they were never in on Ben Simmons. So I'll give them their credit for that. And they took some heat for that. And they feel a type of way about that, by the way. That's one of those where a lot of people were loud about saying a lot of things. And that was a point in Twitter where, shit, if you ever criticize me for criticizing Houston Rockets players, go back to my timelines back then, because I was rapid fire on anyone who was not a Rockets fan, who was criticizing the Rockets for that, because they said a lot of things. And they were dead ass wrong, right? Ben Simmons flamed out. Rockets dodged multiple bullets, a cannonball. They dodged a cannonball, right? By not making that trade. So they deserve their credit for that. But no, I mean, Stone feels like, I'll say this, it feels like Ime Udoka knows what he wants. And not only does he know what he wants, but he knows how to make it work with what he wants. So Steven Adams, for example, I feel like I just feel confident in that, Udoka was like, yo, I need this type of player. Stone went out and got him, And so if Ime Udoka is able to be confident in knowing what he wants, I am confident that Stone can go get that player or a player like that. So I feel pretty good about it. Like I said earlier, I'm just not, this is the most comfortable I've felt about this team in half a decade, basically, so I haven't really been tripping this summer. Summers past, I was like, shit, if we don't get, this pick and we don't get this player, like, oh no, man, what are we going to do? You're going to end up like the Pistons. But thankfully that did not happen. So
big facts. And I'm the same. Like you said, I didn't even know the draft was today. But on that note, man, appreciate you, brother. We will see how all this unfolds as the summer goes along. We'll keep you guys in the loop. If you're new to the channel, hit the subscribe button. If you like this video, hit the like button. Keep rocking with the Chop Shop. We're going to keep dropping that fire. Bang, bang.